Look, James is already here. James, we did it.
I don't know if
we did it, James.
I don't even know if I'm willing to do that.
What are you talking about?
I just proposed it. I don't know if I'm willing to do that.
Why would you not do that?
Hey, Chris Paul.
Okay, so you guys can't trade 24.
We did it, James.
You can't trade 24. You can't trade 25. You can't trade 26, and you can't trade 27.
Wait a minute. Wait. Why?
As of today, because of the Stepien rule, you have it's a top 14 protected in 2024. That means that you can't trade, and it goes to a top 12 protected in 2025 and a top 10 protected in 2026. Because of the Stepien rule, you can't trade back-to-back picks, which means you can't trade 26 or 27. That means that the closest one you can trade is a 2028, and now you have access to your 2030. So you can trade the player that you draft in 2023. You can trade 28 and 30. You can also go to Atlanta and try to negotiate just for them to take 24 off your hands without any questions, like an unprotected 2024.
Well, do that.
Well, if you do that, then you have access to your 25. I mean, your 26, your 27, your 28, your 29, and your 30. But only every other year because you can't trade back to back.
Tell Wes to call his buddies in Atlanta and say, "Hey, dude, just you can have it."
And look here,
I don't care anymore.
That damn Stepien rule. If I want to get rid of all my picks, I should be able to.
Go full. Like I want to do whatever I want to do. Yeah, like
I never want to have a first round pick again. That should be my
the
prerogative.
Stepien rule should be you can't get rid of 6 straight picks. If I want to get rid of 5 straight picks, let me do it.
Yeah. Well, and this happened in the late 80s where they I think it was the Bullets at the time decided to just trade away all their picks, and so they had to put a ceiling, and that's why you see there's a ceiling of 7 years that you can trade within. Now, like we can add this to it. Like you can put stipulations in that if you do have the 2025 pick, if you still have your 2025 pick, then you can do a pick swap. Right? So you can add in pick swaps as well, which is sort of what Vlade did in 2016 when he traded away Stauskas and Carl Landry and Jason Thompson for nothing, for just empty cap space. But he gave up a future first and let me think, was it 2 or 3 pick swaps? One of which came back to bite the Kings when they moved up to number 3 in the 2017 draft and then fell back to number 5 where they drafted De'Aaron Fox. That was part of that. And then the year after they drafted Marvin, they didn't have a first round pick, which again, that didn't hurt them because they barely missed the playoffs. That was, I think, the 39 win team. And so they were like the 13th or 14th pick, which ended up being like Denzel Valentine or something.
Valentine?
Or maybe Romeo Langford. One of those. Yeah. Something like that.
Romeo Langford. Shout out to Jesse.
You're listening to D-Lo and KC on KIFM West Sacramento 98.5 FM, KRX QHD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320. Always live on the free Odyssey app, as you are well aware. Our 1320 Kings insider, James Ham, with us here. Hammer, what do you think about the news Chris Haynes broke just a few moments ago? Phoenix has informed Chris Paul he'll be waived, and now he'll be a free agent beginning June 30th.
Yeah, I think it's one of those weird things that if we look back, we're probably going to wonder why it is that the NBA Players Association and the NBA renegotiated to remove the clause from the contract that, you know, players over a certain age aren't allowed to have certain specific contracts, which Chris Paul, as the president of the Players Association, helped change. And then all of a sudden he starts making all the monies well after his 34th birthday. So that's one thing. My biggest takeaway is that Chris Paul is still a serviceable player. He's still a game changer for 20 to 24 minutes a night. But you can't trust him in the playoffs because of injuries. And it's unfortunate for Chris because, you know, he is a tremendous player. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my book. I'm not a huge fan of his antics and his game. As far as like the silly things that he does, because I think a lot of times he becomes dangerous to other players by, doing like the barrel rolls on the floor and stuff. But you do have to respect what he's meant to the game, how he is one of the great leaders in the game, and that Phoenix just got worse. Phoenix doesn't have a natural replacement for him. If they were smart, they wouldn't have drafted Jalen Smith and a couple of years back, and they would have drafted Tyrese Halliburton. And now they would have their natural replacement for Chris Paul. But I think it does hurt the Suns, especially during the regular season. And they've got a lot of work to do, and they don't have a lot of contracts, a lot of financial freedom to go and do anything major. And they have a bunch of holes in their roster, just like a lot of other teams. And like Chris Paul is a Western Conference guy. I wouldn't be surprised to see him stay in the Western Conference. And that means that at least one team that may have been like on the fringe of being really good now has another chip that they can add to their arsenal, whether that's the Lakers or the Clippers or the Pelicans.
Kings.
Or the Kings. There
Would
we go.
Would you take him on the Kings as a backup point guard? I don't know if did you hear the trade we talked about before you came on?
So I just heard you guys messing with a bunch of crazy stuff, but go ahead.
I was trying to get OG Anunoby here and to sign Chris Paul. That was the plan.
And what I said was Davion 24 or whatever pick will make it work. But Davion 24 for OG, and then you sign Chris Paul as the backup point guard.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually like financially, it's possible. You do Davion and Rashawn, and that would get you enough because Rashawn makes 12 and Davion makes 5. That's 17. OG makes 18 point something. Maybe his contract goes up to 19 this year, but it doesn't matter. That's within the 20%. You can make that trade and still have a bunch of cap space to go. And like, if you want to bring back Harrison Barnes as your third forward, you could still do that. You would still have your mid-level exception in place. You would still have your biannual exception in place. So you easily could do something like the biannual for Chris Paul, or part of the mid-level exception for Chris Paul and for Sasha Vezenkov, and then add players. I don't know what Chris Paul is going to like gain on the open market. Like, I'd be surprised if he isn't more like a minimum level player at this point as far as contract. But the way that the new CBA works, a bunch of teams that are over the luxury tax just lost their mid-level. So they don't even have like the taxpayer mid-level at $5 million a year to offer somebody. So it really does kind of knock the wind out of the sails of some of these guys.
Well, I don't think Chris Paul is a league minimum player, but the fact that he's making $15 million from the Phoenix Suns this year, I think it was $15.6 million from the Phoenix Suns this year, will allow him to sign wherever he wants to for whatever he wants to.
So does State Farm commercials, who thanks for State Farm for backing out of California. So everyone now is looking for new homeowners insurance. But Chris Paul does he's making tons of money there. He's making tons of money all over the place. And this is a player who's made, $400 million in his career, something like that, something crazy. And so I don't think anyone should feel bad if Chris Paul at age 38 needs to take a league minimum contract somewhere.
And that won't be Sacramento.
No.
That will likely be in Los Angeles.
I think it'll be the Lakers.
One of the two Los Angeles teams.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's in Los Angeles, if that's where he ends up, just because it makes a lot of sense. It could also, don't count out New Orleans. Would he make sense in New Orleans?
Count them out. Yeah, I'm going to count them out. Yeah, I just honestly think he wants to, at this point, especially for the amount of, he just wants to be with his family in LA. Like, the LA teams like work. Why go to New Orleans? Like, that's not a good situation right now.
Well,
yeah, but could you make that a good situation?
Hey, have you checked on the Zion Williamson news from today? Are you going to write an article about that over at the kingsbeat.com?
I will not be writing an article on
it's a whole different connotation to the Kings Beat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that guy definitely He can't play on the court, but off the court, clearly he's got game.
Gang top.
He's got game.
He's an all pro.
He's all pro. Yep.
All pro over there.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Oh man.
This seems to be hinted at. Jill just sent me something. Is there, and I don't know the rules to this. It doesn't seem possible. Can he sign with Phoenix for a smaller contract?
Oh, I don't know.
Given
I'd
the
have
fact
that they owe him $15 million.
If he can, that's a glitch in the matrix. If he was able to sign with the Suns.
It doesn't seem possible, but
and also,
I don't know the
rules. Yeah, that's a good question. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think he can. I think if they opt out of that deal because he is getting paid, that he's and the other thing is I think that if he goes to another team, he's not going to make that money as well. There's probably a clause written into that contract that if he
that can't be right.
No,
that can't be right.
15.
Like
he might get straight cash.
It's guaranteed. Like isn't it like a buyout? Like that's guaranteed money. Like his contract was for 30. If they cut him, it was only guaranteed for 15. He's
but he's getting 15, but there's NBA offsets, so it's possible that if he gets $5 million from another team, that $5 million doesn't go to him, it goes to the Suns to pay off the 15 part of the 15 million. So there is like a lot of contracts have NBA offsets. So if you go and get another job somewhere else, that money comes off the books. Now,
hey, kiss my ass! You fired me. You ain't getting my money from my new employer.
Yeah,
isn't that what happened with Ben Simmons with Philly and Brooklyn?
Well, no, they wanted. I don't. Didn't Philadelphia want their money back? They're like, this didn't work out. We want our money back for this guy.
Something like that. But I remember it was something. I do remember hearing something about they went
to some sort of
Brooklyn. Brooklyn was like, oh man, yeah, we'll find out in a second.
Yeah, there's no way
because remember he sat for a year. Like he did not play. Like he was like, I'm not coming to work.
That is what it is. You trade for a contract. Yeah, you trade for a contract. You trade for a contract. It is what it is. Yeah. And they have to pay it. The only way you can get out, you can do like an injury settlement. And so if he's never going to play again, that would be one thing. So this happened with, the Kings had Sharif Abdul-Rahim, and he played out, I think, 2 or 3 years of a 5-year deal. But his knee went bad, and so they did an injury settlement. He retired. If he would have come back, all of that money would have hit the Kings' salary cap again, but he didn't come back, which is something that did happen, or at least attempted to happen with Darius Miles. If you remember Darius Miles, they retired him on a medical retirement, and then he tried to make a comeback like 2 or 3 years later. If he would have come back and made it, all of the money from before would have come back and hit the previous team, which would have been like tremendous, like a big time weight that they couldn't have like avoided. That would have been like a bad scene.
That's confusing.
All of it's confusing. And like, to be honest, there was a time where I was so fresh and on top of all of the salary cap stuff. And it was something that I love doing. But when you end up writing as many stories as I have over the last, specifically the last 3 years I was with NBC, like you fall behind on all of your study. And so normally I would know exactly what the offset or what, Chris Paul could and could not do once he's out of that contract. But I'd have to go back and look and just touch up on those sections of the CBA.
Yeah, it gives me a headache. When we talk about numbers like this, it
makes me just watch the games.
Yeah. I like that aspect of it, though. I mean, it does adds wrinkles and to sort of the conversation all the time. You can't just go out and, especially the trade machine became like the devil, because everyone's just out there making these trade ideas, and most of the trade ideas that they're making, even if they somehow pass through the trade machine, they're not legitimate and they won't work. And so you have to kind of set people straight on occasion.
Everybody hates the trade machine.
It's a horrible. There's two things I hate: the trade machine and who says no.
Who says no?
It's two stupidest things ever.
Or the trade machine combined with who said no.
Oh, they go hand in hand.
I could catch a stray with, I could hit someone with a stray bullet right there that's renowned for his who says no, based off of trade machine stuff. But I won't. I'll be nice.
Chris Paul going to sign a deal for $2 million, and Gabe Vincent going to sign one for 15. That's going to be a wild moment. That's going to be a wild moment.
James, who would you max out? Gabe Vincent or James Harden?
Oh, like who? I would.
Who? That was that a Bill Simmons question? Ryan Russillo. That's right.
I think I would pay more money for Gabe Vincent at this point, but
it's almost universal, right? Like nobody wants to pay James Harden that money.
Yet he's torn.
He's torn between Philadelphia and if I'm Philadelphia, I'm like, brother, let me help you decide.
Yeah.
Where's
the big giant button?
I heard it's beautiful in Houston. Don't mind the traffic there. Go there.
Yeah.
Go there. I heard they got great clubs there, James.
Great club. You know he loves clubs. Man.
He does like the clubs.
He does love the clubs.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is just the beginning of a whirlwind here with this NBA off season and Chris Paul and all these other people going anywhere. We keep trying to figure out how to get the Kings to another level, to that championship level, because we feel, this could be a wide open NBA season, another wide open NBA season. Is there a realistic move, in your opinion, that gets the Kings into that championship conversation?
I mean,
I don't know if there is one.
I'm not going to say that the Kings are one move away from being a championship contender, but I mean, yes, if somehow Kevin Durant walked through that door, they're a championship contender. Like that one, sure. There's a handful of like superstars that if they make that move, it's over and the Kings are a championship contender. But for my money, I would say like the safest bet to become a legitimate top of the Western Conference title contender for the next 4 or 5 years. And I mean, you're going to have to work out contracts and everything else. To me, the perfect fit guy, and this is not consensus because there are people that do not believe this, but I think it's OG. Like that's the guy where I think he's been undervalued where he's at. And like the way he can change your defensive mindset would be incredible. The fact that he's very similar in offensive player style to Harrison Barnes. He just has like a really, really high end defensive quality to him, and not just for himself. Like he's not just a great individual defender. He's a great team defender as well. That's the one guy that I think makes you a legitimate 2, 3, 4 for the next couple of years. He's only under contract for one more season, and then he has a player option for the year after that. You can negotiate a contract with him this summer, and he's a player that, I think his contract is moderate. I think it's right around, I want to say it's right around 19 million. But you remember the NBA just passed this rule that you can go out and work with these contracts, and you can do 140% of his contract as a starting salary. So again, he's making 18.6 million. He's got a player option at 19.9 for the following season, which is below market for him, but is 140% of 18.6. Is that worth it? And would he take a contract extension like that, where we talk about Sabonis and say, hey, there's no way that he's going to do that. But like a starting salary at 26 million for OG Anunoby with 8% raises every year puts him, at like a, 4-year 110, 120. That's probably fair for him. That's probably a good market value for him. And that's something that I think, teams that are going to shop for OG, it would be with the idea that they would probably be able to have a conversation with him before about the potential of extending him for like basically a trade and extend. And so we'd have to see if it would work out. But again, that's a player that, like what we talked about before with Sabonis, if you have cap space, if you're the Kings and you have cap space, you could use, $3 million of your cap space to put a salary up at around 20, 21 and a half, 22 million, and then have his 140% based off of that number going forward. And so there are ways that you could actually get a player like OG. You have to decide though, like you're all in on this roster if you make a move like that. And then what does that mean for, the Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles? Would Toronto even consider taking on the second year of Rashawn Holmes? And I mean, how many first round picks is it going to cost you? Because I would say it's going to cost you your first round pick this year, the player who they want you to draft at number 24. It's going to cost you 28 and 30.
It can't be 3 first-round picks. Like, he's got 1 year left on his deal. I don't think it's 3 first-round picks.
Well, the only way you would do that is if you already had a conversation in place where you knew you were going to be able to extend him.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's possible. So that would have to be an extension this summer, not like promises of what might happen next summer when he becomes an unrestricted free agent like Sabonis. So last thing you want to do is to have a really, really exciting 2023-24 season and walk into the summer with Malik Monk, Domantas Sabonis, and OG Anunoby all unrestricted free agents. That would be a disaster in the making and not something that you'd want to venture into.
Someone asked us this question. It was on the show, and I just don't remember if it was during the show or after the show. So I'm gonna ask it, and if I'm asking it again, like, forgive me. It was a question in the chatty house, and it's gonna piss everyone off. But I'm gonna ask it because I thought it was an interesting question. Is OG Anunoby better than Miles Bridges?
Miles Bridges. First of all, yes, I think he is better than Miles Bridges, and I also think he's a better fit. Like, I think Miles Bridges is fun as a player. I'm not touching him, like the off the court stuff. There's no way. Like, I don't think you come back from that. And we hear rumor that he may or may not be in the league next year. All this stuff that Charlotte's ready to re-sign him. And every time that's come out, Charlotte's been like, wait, we didn't say that. So there's always been like that question mark. Is he ever going to play in the league again? And if you're the Kings and you want to keep preaching this, this progressive, agenda that they like to preach, you can't bring in a dude who did what he did as far as Miles Bridges. Now, if we're asking, is OG Anunoby better than Mikal Bridges? My answer is no. I think Mikal Bridges is a better player and would be a franchise changer for the Sacramento Kings. There's no way you're going to get your hands on Mikal Bridges. They just have no interest in moving on from him. And even you'd have to give up something for Miles Bridges just because he is a restricted free agent. And I don't know, man. That's tough. That's a really, really tough sell. And he would have had to have done everything perfect after the fact and been out in front of this and apologetic and all of these things that he just hasn't. We haven't heard from him. Like that's a problem. He hasn't. We don't know that he went through his 12-step program or all of the basic things that he's going to have to go through just as a human being to get free and clear of his situation. So yeah, I don't think if I'm the Kings, is it worth it? Because I mean, we're talking about a guy who hasn't played in a year and maybe doesn't fit exactly perfectly with what you're doing. I mean, he would probably fit, but I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't think he does fit. Like, is he a good ball player? I'm not so quick to say that OG is better than him the way everybody else does, but I know for a fact Miles Bridges doesn't fit here, and OG fits a lot better than he does. So yeah, like you just can't. There's no need to. There's no need to. Like, there's other ways to improve. There's other ways to get to where you're trying to get outside of, signing Miles Bridges. And, you talked about it before. I do think somebody's going to sign him. Like, I don't think his career's over, but it can't happen here in Sacramento.
Yeah, I mean that's always going to be the question. Can it happen here? And again, we talk about the OG thing. They may never trade OG Anunoby. He may end up in Toronto his whole career. This might be all conjecture and everything else. I'll just say, like, if you're asking the question, is there a player who I believe is a perfect fit? It's not consensus, but if I believe is a perfect fit, that's him. You know, I like if I had to choose between him and Siakam for the Kings roster, I'm taking Anunoby. And again, maybe I'm crazy there because you know, people love Siakam, but you know, age wise, Siakam's like 3 or 4 years older. You know, you're going to run into that as like you don't want to close your window quicker than it is than it needs to be. OG kind of fits all of the basics. He shoots the 3 ball well enough. Offensively, it's literally, if we're talking about the whole maintain and improve, you basically maintain on the offensive end and you improve on the defensive end. And I was doing defensive numbers today and just looking when I was going through and writing a piece about what the Kings need this offseason, not what player specific they need, but what style or what positions of need they have. And Harrison Barnes is much better defensively than I think anyone thought. He was actually a plus defender this year, or right a little above league average. And to me, that was a surprise because he was horrifically bad last year. What did we talk about? He was in like the 12th percent. I need to look and see where he ranked overall, but like like his percentages holding players, you know, whether it's from the 3-point line or 2-point shots or, you know, inside of 16 feet, he was basically he held everyone under their the league average for percentages in almost every area on the floor.
I would have never thought that.
We'll come back. Got a little update to the question we asked regarding Chris Paul and his potential future with the Phoenix Suns from our man Keith Smith. We'll give that to you. We deal with KC, brought to you by Sky River Casino. Return here with James Ham on Sacramento Sports Leader ESPN 1320. Oh man, Bisser, yeah. It's a hell of a clip. Hell of a clip. How was happy hour, Hammer?
It was good, man. He's so much fun. He's got so much energy, and he talked about every single player you could possibly imagine, whether it was Lionel Simmons or, you know, maybe he didn't talk about Walt Williams. That's interesting. Spud Webb, the Bobby Hurley situation and being there for that. You know, like everything under the sun. And then we had this great moment late when about 5 minutes before Gary had to go, and Pete Youngman dropped by out of nowhere just to tell Gary just how much he appreciated it and how much he absolutely you know, thinks of him and Bill Jones and Jerry Reynolds as like the guys who helped make his career. Really, really incredible moment. And I know Gary was touched. Very like he started to get emotional, and then his grandson came in and he had to run. But it was a good moment. And then Pete stuck around and hung out and talked to a little G League and you know, just hung out for a little while we fielded questions. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. That is tremendous.
We did, in fact, have a freeze. I got kicked out of the happy hour last night.
Wow.
Which, again, like, it's a long story. The wife has let us all down with the internet. She stole my secondary internet box because I got the Verizon box just to like be a secondary support. And her dad's power went out for like a month, and we kept bringing him we brought him a generator and gas and all this stuff for like 3 weeks. Well, his Wi-Fi was down and was going to be down for like 6 weeks. So she brought him my box and it worked at his house. And now I've lost my secondary internet box. So yeah.
Anyway. Mrs. Ham, attorney at law.
Killing me, Smalls.
I'm glad it was successful, despite
It was.
the ham freeze.
Yeah, it wasn't like we had a good crowd, but not a great crowd. I think just because it's Tuesday night, and people are used to Wednesday nights.
Well, the notice, it was like there wasn't as much notice too. I'm sure that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
But still, at least it was.
No, it was good, man. He was great. I just what a wonderful dude he is. You know, and his son is lead assistant in Denver. I mean, in Dallas. You know, he talked about Vivek and how Vivek like pulled him down, let him sit courtside with him, invited him to sit courtside with him and MJ, his wife.
Mhm.
So like for his birthday, when the Kings came out of the All-Star break and played Dallas back-to-back games, his son Greg was of course coaching, and that was Gary's birthday, and they had Gary and his wife got to sit courtside with Vivek. Good time.
Very good.
With the cereal connection, man, you're always asking these same questions. You know what I love? Cereal connection. I love Crunch Berries.
Yeah, Manny's a little special.
And Cookie Crisp.
Crunch Berries, Cookie
Berries
Crisp.
are
Oh,
good.
Cookie Crisp. Yeah,
Captain Crunch was Crunch Berries, and Cookie Crisp. Those are my two from my.
those are just cookies.
I ate a lot of Cinnamon Life. I never got sugar cereal. Cinnamon Life and Honey Nut Cheerios.
Honey Nut Cheerios is good too. I don't know what Cinnamon Life
Jesse
is.
working the algorithm. Love to see it.
It just got mushy. That's what Cinnamon Life did.
There's cereal that's just crunched up Oreos.
That doesn't seem like it's actually fortified with 9 essential vitamins and
Does
minerals.
not. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
not. And there may be more to it, but it's just it's an Oreo cereal, and it's like this. Why not just get a box of Oreos?
Okay,
Cookies
so
used to be good, but they changed up like the cookies. It's not good anymore.
Oh dear, can't change up the cookies.
Sean, I did watch it. I enjoyed it. I think I might be the only one on this show or in this chat who watched the new White Man Can't Jump.
I'm in season 3 of is it Snowfall? Snowfall.
So
It's got a little raggedy in the 3rd season. I've got it. I had to take a break. It got a little off base.
so
first
Wait
2
till the
episodes.
tiger hits Compton.
well, look here. Look, and I know it's a TV show. I don't want to ruin it. I try not to ruin it for myself, but I'm still in season 1. I'm about 8 episodes in. Is the theme is that he probably should have died like 400 times. He already should have died a number of times. First when he got robbed, then when he went to the Mexican drug house, then when the guy who he took his money back from saw him in front of his house. Franklin should have. It's episode 8. There's about 4 times he should have died.
Well, yeah, but that speaks to the game.
Hold on,
That's
Hammer.
like-
Hold on,
all
Hammer.
right.
We're not going to disparage Snowfall, by the way.
I'm not
I just wanted-
disparaging.
I kind of felt
I
like
know.
So-
Don't do that.
okay,
Don't do that.
okay.
I enjoy the movie a lot.
here's
I the show a lot.
here's one that we haven't talked about before. I finished season 2 of BMF.
I don't know.
It's not good. The
Not
series
good.
isn't good. It's poorly acted. And what's dude's name? Lester. What's his name?
Who's Lester?
The dude who keeps coming back from the freaking dead.
Now that's crazy. No, that's crazy.
That so
That's
I'm
crazy.
gonna
It's,
say this.
oh man, what? Oh man,
It's
what
something
is
with
his
an
name,
L.
man?
I thought it was. It's not Lester.
I always forget, man.
I don't know BMF. I don't know that one.
It's
Lamar.
Lamar. Thank you.
No, that's
Lamar.
crazy, bro.
It's poor.
Like
it's
this guy.
Not good.
This guy doesn't have any intestines.
No.
and he's running around beating everybody up.
I finished the series over. It was like, and I'm just like, I'm gonna see this through. This is not good,
Bro. How like the Donnell Rawlings character that always gets punked by him. Bro, you yell at me, I'm gonna sock you in your stomach, and you won't be able to move. what,
Have you
what?
finished? Have you finished the series?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Donnell Rawlings did more than sock him in the stomach.
So I've got to the point where I have to look to see if I've actually watched the episode. So I'll see a show, I'll be like, hey, that looks interesting. And then I'll open it up and I'll be like, have I already watched this? and I'll look. I'm like, oh yeah, I watched every single episode. Yep, I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, the second season wasn't
Not good.
wasn't that good. Although, I mean, it was what it was, though. It is what it was. Never going to be.
And you talk
Raising
about
Kanan.
someone getting like, how many times is T gonna die?
Come on, man. Come on, man.
This is
Oh, that's another one.
I think 50's
They all
burned
should
out.
have. They all should have died about 5 times in that season. Yet they made it out, and they're now going to Atlanta to start.
Now they're
their
going to
empire.
Atlanta. Yeah, now they're going to Atlanta. Our buddy, who's here he is, Keith Smith.
Keith Smith
tweeted something to factor in with the Chris Paul impending waiver. If the Suns waive and stretch Chris Paul, they will not be able to re-sign him. That would last through the terms of the original deal, so through 24-25. If it's a straight waiver, the Suns could re-sign Chris Paul this summer.
What? Okay, so
now I'm gonna say one other thing.
Yep.
I feel like we know Chris Haynes pretty well.
Yeah.
I feel like I know where that intel came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't feel like the Phoenix Suns are in his future. I could 1,000% be wrong. The Phoenix Suns might have intentions, but I don't get the impression that the Phoenix Suns are in his future.
Break that down a little bit if you can. Like, why do you feel that way?
Well, I feel like Chris and Chris are. I feel like they know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And he may have gotten that information from Chris Paul. Like he may have gotten information about Chris Paul from Chris Paul.
Yeah.
And I feel like if someone was going to allude to Chris Paul's future with Phoenix,
they would have mentioned it right there.
It might have been Chris Haynes
saying the door's not closed.
Yeah. Chris put multiple tweets out.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a door is like he said plainly. He's going to be a free agent this year, this summer. So again, it doesn't mean it's not true. It just means,
I got you.
I'm leaning on Chris Haynes a little bit with this one. And if Chris Haynes mentions it, I'll put a little more validity into it. But if I guess Brian Windhurst is he's doing his now, why would they do that thing? Hey, and he was on point last time.
Yeah.
But I'll take Chris Haynes' lead on this one.
James, do you feel the same way that Phoenix is looking like a complete mess right now? It looks like
they are because like we're talking about like the potential for them to stretch and all that stuff. That even like it doesn't really even help them. So the salary cap's 134 million. It would get them like so if they take Chris Paul and his contract is guaranteed at 15.8. So we shave 15 million off their current $163 million payroll. That certainly saves them some luxury tax dollar, a lot of luxury tax dollar, drops them to 148 million. But they're still well over the cap. So it's not like they can go out and sign somebody. And if they stretch him, then you're basically taking his $15 million contract, you're breaking it up over 3 years because you get the stretch provision is 2 times the length of the contract plus 1 year. So that puts you at 3 years. So we're looking at like $5.3 million basically. So you would save about 10.6 million. But again, if we wipe that money off so now you're at like 138 million. So you're under the luxury tax, which might be able to get you your mid-level exception back, but you don't have enough like to make a meaningful bid on anyone is basically what I'm saying. And if you stretch provision him, you cannot use him in any way. Like his money's gone. Right. So it's just that stretch provision, that 5 point whatever million, it's just dead money that sits there on the books this year, next year, and the year after. And there's nothing you can do about it.
And it feels like if you release him, it's all gone next year because his contract wasn't guaranteed. He was under contract next year. I believe it was 30 million, but unlike this year where half of it was guaranteed, next year, none of it was guaranteed. So my guess is everything is gone next year. They're thirsty. And I believe they're frightened. That's my opinion on Phoenix. Is I think the gravity of what they did at the trade deadline to land Kevin Durant is starting to hit them a little bit. Like we have no future. We have a now. We don't even have a now. We have a right now. And that's it. And I don't know that they recognized that when they made the trade or if they cared. But, you know, now that the alcohol's worn off, maybe it feels a little like, oh, what did we do last night? And I think they're in a tough spot.
And even your right now is looking like,
oh,
I don't even know if we got enough right now.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be right now. We don't even have enough.
Well, like and that's the right now is the closest you have to being a contender, because in 4 years, you ain't got that.
You know, here's the problem though. There's always some team that's willing to bail out these teams. So there's someone who's going to say, hey, we'll take Aiden off your hands and make all of a sudden the Suns will be a team that can get back in the running, that can sit there and be players and find the point guard, the small forward, like all the other positions they need. So they've got like Landry Shamet. No one should take Landry Shamet and his 3-year, $32 million left on his contract. Somebody will. That's the way it goes. Somebody always does. And so I don't know, that to me, like there's a way that they'll escape, and we'll all be sitting here like, man, that just doesn't make any sense. How did you escape? How did you get out from underneath that? And sure enough, they always do.
We did have a theory that, what was it? Dallas was going to go get DeAndre Ayton, and Phoenix was going to get Kyrie. That would be the swap. They sign Kyrie Irving and do a deal with Phoenix. Dallas would get DeAndre Ayton. You'd have DeAndre and Luka, and go from there. Maybe
if you're
Dallas, I doubt it, but you throw him into the conversation.
Out there,
throw that into the conversation.
Yeah, I remember I heard about that. That was through trade, though, or no, maybe it was released. I didn't hear about that a couple weeks ago. Dallas,
but if you
Ayton and CP3,
if you're Kevin Durant, do you sign off on that? Do you say, okay, I want to be his teammate again?
Well, and yeah, that's obviously an important component to this. I do
maybe. What I said it earlier. I guess Kevin Durant seems to like Kyrie Irving more than everybody else does. Everybody else is like, I'd never play with him.
I don't think any NBA player says that. I think a lot of people like Kyrie. I think I don't agree with that. I think Kevin Durant really likes Kyrie Irving, the person. I do think there's a disconnect with the two on the floor. And I don't know if it's because Kevin Durant is frustrated with Kyrie not being around last year before all these deals were done. If it's, taking the focus off that. When you listen to Kevin Durant talk about Kyrie Irving, I think he makes it clear he loves Kyrie Irving. But I also, it also feels like there's something else between those two. And I think it has to do with purely the basketball perspective.
I don't even think that, because I think when he had his problems in Brooklyn, first thing he said was, we need to get Nash out of here. Like that was the focus of his issues. And then they got him out of there. They started playing great. And I think it became clear Brooklyn wasn't going to pay Kyrie. So they traded Kyrie. And then it seemed like Katie was like, all right, well, get me out of here then.
Okay, so
I'm with the basketball player either.
This is how I would look at it if I were Kevin Durant. You've got like 4 seasons left, probably, right? Maybe you stretch it out to 6, but even those last 2 are going to be pretty rough, especially you're a dude who popped your Achilles, who's had other injuries. Would you gamble on somebody wasting another year of your career? Like 25% of what you have left?
Well, you might not have a choice. Like if you don't get Kyrie, what you're going to do? Campaign?
I guess like you got to figure out something.
Maybe this is what sat in my mind. Kevin Durant says he hadn't talked to Kyrie Irving since the trade from the Nets. Maybe that's the thing that was sitting in my head. That could be wrong. It feels like something, but I don't like he's made it clear about being able to separate things in the past. He being Kevin Durant, I think he loves Kyrie Irving. I think there's something off on the basketball floor, and I'm not talking playing style. And I think it's more of what James is kind of alluding to is the availability. If I'm the two of them, I'm the Spider-Man meme pointing at the other. Like,
say, pot calling the kettle
we're talking about availability.
But one of those is due to injury, and one of them is due to like just not wanting to play, not wanting to abide by the rules, and wanting to be a contrarian. And the one thing I'll say, like,
Well, I think it's
players love Kyrie. Like, the players love him. Like, De'Aaron Fox talked about it. Like, there isn't a player in this league that doesn't love Kyrie and wouldn't want to play with him. They all love him.
Yeah.
And even Dallas Mavericks, I know that when Luka was out for those 3 games, like, they were like, what in the world is happening? All of a sudden we're getting the ball. Like, all of his teammates were like, they got to play with Kyrie for the first 3 games after the trade without Luka. They were excited. They thought, like, holy cow, this is the best thing ever. This is how basketball is supposed to be played. Luka comes back and they don't make the playoffs. They tanked after that. So you got a taste of the good life. And strangely enough, in this situation, Kyrie was a good life. I've talked about this. Kyrie was a Trojan horse there. And it's not for the reason why you think. It's not like you wheeled him in and he went in there and destroyed the franchise from the inside being Kyrie. He went in there and showed everybody how much better life could be like if you played with somebody like him. And they got a taste of the good life and were like, okay, this isn't like, how do we function? How do we keep doing this moving forward? And so, yeah, I think it's really interesting what the dynamics are in Dallas. It's just totally crazy.
This from Sham Sharania. The Phoenix Suns have notified Chris Paul that they intend to find a resolution this offseason that fits the veteran star and the Suns organization, which could include parting ways. The Suns and Paul are exploring multiple options, league sources tell The Athletic, including a trade, waiving and stretching his contract over multiple years, or waiving and potentially re-signing him in free agency.
So you're saying there's a chance?
No, what I'm saying is, remember what we just said about Chris Haynes?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Where do you think this came from?
The Suns.
The Suns.
The Suns are like, hey, we got to control the story here a little bit.
Yeah, the message got loose, got away from him.
I have no problem saying this about Chris because we talked about it with him. This business that Chris is in, James, that you're in, is building relationships with people. And Chris has relationships with some of these guys that he's reporting on. And Shams has relationships with a lot of organizations. Just like, and somewhere Adrian Wojnarowski just left out in the cold of this whole thing.
No, he's on the phone with some agent somewhere, like figuring out the other side.
Yeah, very, very, very well may be. But
yeah, there's always an angle.
But point being, 2 very, very differently worded presentations of the same story.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too. Zebra PT in the chat. Sacramento looks quite stable by contrast. What a hoot. It's funny. This is the offseason where, again, you can go through every single team in the Western Conference outside of the Denver Nuggets and say they're in a more chaotic situation than the Kings. The Kings are stable. They have some question marks as far as like roster construction moving forward, but some of those can just be handled by paying guys that you already have on your roster and maintaining. Like, to improve is one thing, but just go down the list. You got the free agency of Russell Westbrook and the injury problems with the 2 stars with the Clippers. You've got the chaos that is the Golden State Warriors at this point with Draymond, with Bob Myers. You got the Memphis situation, which is just, I don't even know what to make of that, but that sounds like it's going to be, we were speculating it might be around 25 games. I don't think so. That's going to be much longer than that from what I can tell. And you just keep going down the list, like Minnesota still trying to figure out if Gobert and Cat can coexist and all their situation. The Lakers have like 87% of their rosters free agents. Like, who can they retain and who can they not? And how much can you rely on a 40-year-old, LeBron James going forward and AD? So I do think that the Kings are in an interesting situation. We didn't even talk about the Zion situation with the Pelicans. Like, stability.
Oh, about Zion?
Well, I don't care.
Go ahead. What's your take on the Zion Williamson news?
Oh man.
Well, I think just like straight up, like, he's got to be able to like put weight on his foot. So before I even worry about all the other
we're
stuff,
talking about his foot. Oh, okay.
before we even talk about the rest of it, I mean, this dude with a Lisp frank fracture, who weighs 290 pounds and
His
can't
foot
stay in
seems to be
shape, and
going fine.
yeah, he seems to be moving just fine. Like, but man, the chaos off the court. Like, but it's not like that's an NBA thing.
Maybe we
Like,
found out why he can't put any weight on his foot.
there it is. I mean, like, this has been a thing in the NBA forever. So, I mean, like, people remember the Dante Green situation here in Sacramento with like one person on Facebook outing him about a child, another one on Twitter, and all while he had just got married and had a new baby. Like, it's not like this isn't the first time. And
These dudes need Olivia Pope, man.
They need to just calm down.
Well, that's a start.
Yeah.
Zion got too much damn free time on his hands. He's got way too much free time on his hands.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler in these situations.
And-
He's got games to play.
Right. That's what, man. Zion, like, they've got some things to figure out in New Orleans.
Yeah.
They've got some things. Like,
Yeah.
Zion's got to get on the floor.
Yeah.
A basketball floor.
The basketball floor.
He's on the floor. He's on the
He's got to
couch.
get on the basketball floor. Let me
He's on the
rephrase
balcony
it.
somewhere.
He needs to be playing. He needs to be playing basketball for the New Orleans Pelicans. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Not good.
I wonder how long before that GM door closes and it's like, hey, we need to talk about this kid.
Should be going on right now.
You think so?
Oh no, it should have happened last offseason because you already knew. I mean, that's why they came back with the crazy clause in his contract. He has to, what is it? His body fat and weight have to be combined less than 290. That's not good. Or his contract goes, he loses tens of millions of dollars off his contract. So, like, that's a kid that, like, you have to wonder, like, how much does he love the game? How much is he willing to put into actually being an NBA player and getting on the court? And it's been, like the Liz Frank fracture. That's catastrophic for a lot of NBA players, especially big guys who carry weight. But, like, it's not like the other injuries they're wearing on him too. I mean, this is a guy who's had health problems, and I just don't know how, he looks more at this point like Larry Johnson, how Larry Johnson's career fell apart. Very similar style of player, undersized power forward with gigantic hops, and just wasn't able to stay healthy.
And the conundrum of it all is for about 25, 30 games, he was unstoppable this year. Unstoppable. He had the Pelicans in the 1 seed. He was unstoppable when he was on the floor, but he just can't stay out there long enough.
Reading all the tweets.
He's unstoppable on the floor, in the room, on the balcony.
Something tells me he might be stopped, though. Something tells me he might have been stopped today. If y'all haven't seen it, you just all you got to do, throw Zion Williamson in Google and just click the New York Post story. Screenshots of all of the tweets. Nothing else but screenshots of all of the tweets. Oh man. James, who you got tonight?
Denver.
Do I even have to ask who you got tonight?
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever pick the Heat to win a game. That doesn't mean they won't ever win a game, but I don't think
clearly.
I will.
Well, I mean, you had them in 5, so you had Miami winning
I did
1.
I did say I don't think that's going to happen now.
The 5,
yeah,
you don't
with the
think
way
they're
the
gonna lose 3
losses
straight?
happen. Yeah, I don't think Miami's losing 3 straight.
Is it crazy to think Miami gets it tonight?
Absolutely not. These guys, they could beat anybody.
Got Gabe Vincent going for 40 tonight.
Wow.
Like, my God,
It's a great series.
Yeah, it's hopefully we get something a lot closer to game 2 than we did game 1 tonight.